Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Travel Alert, sponsored by Executive Travel. Today, we are doing a little different format. We've got Steve on an Alaskan cruise. So we've got Steve joining virtually, and we're going to be talking about all the wonderful things to know and to consider as you look at Alaska, the time to get there, and the things to make sure you do to make sure you maximize that opportunity. So, Steve, thank you for joining us, and why don't we let you kick us off into your Hello from Alaska.
Hello from Alaska, everyone. This is Steve Glenn. Thanks for joining us on the Weekly Travel Alert. I'm coming to you on the cruise line Seabourn. The ship is the Odyssey, the ultra luxury line. And we're doing a southbound Alaska Inside Passage. And it's strikingly beautiful. And I got to do some bragging, Paul. 66 degrees here today. What's it there today for you?
Oh, well, I think right now we're probably in the upper 80s, but give us another 3 or 4 hours and it'll be in the upper 90s. So I am definitely jealous.
Well, I think the perfect time to go, obviously in July and August. We're going to talk about that later in the podcast. When's the right time to go for Alaska cruising? But, obviously this is one of the most popular things to do in the summer. And, It's really what we've noticed, Paul, is it's really on everybody's bucket list. How many times you've been here?
Oh, I'm going to say probably 8 to 10 at this point. It's one of my favorite places to be, and you're going to hit on a lot of those reasons here yet today.
You bet. So we're having a great trip here. Now, for the person that's super active, one of the things that we're seeing a lot of is even this cruise line tends to have, I call it a baby boomer cruise. Because it is ultra luxury, a small ship, about 500 guests, versus we were inside in Juneau and we saw the Royal Caribbean's new cruise ship that had 5,000 people. This one has a little older demographic on it, but even despite that, basically everybody's doing kayaking, hiking, touring, jet boating. It's a pretty active lifestyle on board this cruise. So even though the demographics are a little bit older, so I'm enjoying it.
But some of that, I think, as you and I were talking yesterday, it sounds like, the ship still has a lot of amenities. It's still a fairly large ship with 10 stories. So, it's smaller as far as quantity of guests and smaller, obviously, overall. But the staterooms are a significant step up in size. And then, obviously, the experience itself is a significant improvement from what those mega ships are going to entail. Would that be true statements regarding what the difference would be?
Well, yeah, these all have suites, and so they all have balconies and suites, and so it's truly a luxury experience. Whereas some of the cruise lines and cruise ships have interior staterooms, and stuff without a porthole, even portholes. One of the things that I tell, and we ought to jump right into this because I'm going to hit the 10 observations on my Alaska cruise on Seabourn's Odyssey. And we're going to go through those lickety-split, Paul. Here we go. Number 1, Alaska is the best place to beat the summer heat, as we just talked. It's 100 there. It's going to be 66 to 70. We were in Wrangell, Alaska yesterday. Perfect 70 degrees, sunshine, nary a cloud in the sky. Although Wrangell is not your hot spot. There's only 2,000 people. And you know what the highlight of Wrangell was for me? 2 hardware stores.
2 hardware stores.
Needless to say, Marie didn't. She put up with it, but we made sure we visited all the hardware stores in the town. So you've got to, with that in mind, you've got to prepare for weather that's going to be 50 degrees or could be 75 degrees. So you're going to have sweaters and other things. The nice thing about Seabourn that we enjoyed, when you got on the cruise ship, they give you a weatherproof jacket, parka. And
very nice.
They give it to you. They size it. They have sizes from small up to 6X. So they're used to every size of person. And they do that because some people aren't prepared for Alaska being rainy. A lot of the places we go in Alaska are rainforests. So they're hiking in rainforests and that types of thing. So with that, the other thing I would say is always bring some good foundational shoes that you could get wet and clean up if there's mud or that type of thing. But if you don't want to go out hiking, you don't have to worry about that. So I haven't worried about that on the trail today. So that's number one. Alaska is the best place to beat the heat. Number two, be sure to bring binoculars, Paul, as there's more wildlife on this cruise than taking a safari. Get that. There is wildlife everywhere. You've got literally wolves, sheep, foxes, wolverines, beavers, puffins, whales, sea lions, walruses, literally. And if you're a bird watcher like me, right, Paul? The bird calls, my famous bird calls.
No bird calls today.
Yeah,
no bird calls.
We've seen, of course, bald eagles and owls, falcons. I wrote down ravens, ducks, geese, swans, and songbirds. So bring a good binocular. Now, here's another cool thing about Seabourn. They put a binocular in every room. Isn't that smart?
Yeah, actually, when we were on our tour over to Norway here a couple months ago, on Holland they had binoculars in every pair of rooms or in every set of rooms as well. Because we were prepared. We took a couple sets with us, but then we got there and they had a nice high-powered set right there waiting for us. So I think that's one of those when you're getting to some of these destinations that are known for that nature, they recognize that that's something that they can do and to make your experience that much greater. So, but to that, we did Alaska last summer, and in comparison, we thought Norway we'd get a lot of wildlife. We got 200x the wildlife in Alaska last year compared to what we got in Norway. So it is one of those things. And if you like, what God's got to offer with nature, Alaska is one of those places that tops every place else I've ever been.
Yeah, and we've got people on this ship from the UK, all over the world. So Alaska is not only known for Americans, it's known for tourists all around the world. And so that was number two on the list. Number three on my list of the top 10 things I've observed on my cruise of the Inside Passage of Alaska. It's hard to sleep if you don't shut the blinds because they've got only about 6 hours of darkness. Now, when I say darkness, it's not really even darkness. It's kind of a gray. And then it seems like the light comes early and goes away late up here, especially during the summer time. So always be prepared for that. Some people have a hard time sleeping when it's not dark out. The number 4 item on this week's Weekly Traveler, cruising with 500 people is much better than 5,000 people. Paul, we were on a cruise ship, a port dock beside one in Juneau. Royal Caribbean had one, okay? That had 5,000 people. We have 500. Okay, I don't even see people in the hallway here. It's so wonderful to do a small cruise line, small cruise ship, a luxury cruise line. You told me you couldn't even get in the elevator in your one that had so many people in Norway.
Yeah, it was. You could be standing in line, and the other thing is as you look at whether it be Norway on Holland or whether it be Seabourn, you do end up with quite a few people that are of the demographic that you've got more wheelchairs and more walkers. So obviously, they take precedence when it comes to those elevators. So when you get 5,000 people and a significant number of them are in need of the only way they can get throughout the ship is via the elevators, then that means for a lot of stairs, which, when I'm on a cruise, I can use all the exercise I can get to burn all the calories that I'm putting in. But, at a certain point, it is nice to, at the end of the day, just be able to push a button, be able to get to the floor you want to, and go access what you want. So that was the first thing I thought of when you mentioned, having only 500 people on there. It's just the ease of accessibility, which has to be an attraction to many of the people that are looking at and weighing out the options when it comes to how do they want and what do they want their experience to be when cruising.
Well, I was thinking of the good things about being on one of those cruise ships versus the small ones. The good news is you're going to make sure you get your 10,000 steps a day in on one of those big ones. On this small one, I can walk out about 30 yards, get in the elevator, and be up in the lounge 3 stories above us, and in a matter of probably 100 feet. So it really is so much easier to do on the cruise ship. Hey, we've got the top 10 list. One of the things that I just thought of, Paul, this is going to be not on our top 10, but How many families are now doing Alaska cruises? And I would tell our listeners, hey, if you're thinking of taking your family, go to executivetravel.com. We can help you, advise you on the types of cruise you want, especially for families. And you know what I thought, Paul? I thought this would be great for our family to come up here next year. And I thought how easy it is to get a group rate, a group discount with 10 people. And we can easily do that with our family. So if you're thinking of taking your family for next year, 2025, and you want to get a discount, you can get a discount with as few as 10 people for a group. So with that, we're going to jump back into the top 10 things I've observed on our southbound Inside Passage cruise. One is add a land package to your cruise to really see Alaska. Basically, you're going to see from the ship, you're going to see the shoreline, but a lot of people now on this cruise line are doing kayaking into the glaciers. They're doing jet boats, catamarans. They're doing hiking, and you can do moderate hiking. Like in Juneau, we took the tram up to the top where you could have lunch, and then you can take a 1 mile trek around there. In the national forest, you can take a 3 mile trek. You decide how much you're up for, but people like you and Becky and Matt and Melissa and the families, it's so good for hiking. This is a hiking mecca, and people love it. But you have to be prepared. It's a rainforest, so guess what? When you walk on those boarded planks, they can be a little slick. I noticed a lot of people buy these ski poles, that you kind of use for hiking, and especially for senior citizens. Let me go in through number 6 on this week's list of the top 10 things, observations I made on cruising Alaska. This is the only trip I allow us to check on luggage. Paul, I'm miserable.
You're going against your cardinal sin.
I am miserable lugging this piece of 50 pounds of muck everywhere, and it actually hurt us. It actually hurt us because we were delayed on our flight to Seattle to connect with Alaska, and because of that, I had to go out, check it off of United, recheck it onto Alaska, and we missed our connecting flight. So that's why I warn people, do not take luggage, do not check it on. And I violated my rule, and I paid for that sin. So, see?
It happens to everybody.
Okay. Hey, number 7, Alaska has a high season, a shoulder season, and a no season. So basically, you've got the it's going to kind of waking up in late April or May, okay? And then you've got the high seasons of June, July, and August. You can get some pretty good stuff in the early part of June, but July and August are the heavy season. Everything's full, everything's sold out. And then you get some deals into September, and then late September, it pretty much shuts down. I mean, this whole area, all the shops close down except the hardware stores, in the major cities, but all the shops that tourists want to see are basically done for. So between October and April, you don't get any of the ships up here, but some people still tour Alaska, and you can do that with ferry boats and other things that go year-round for all the locals.
And I think there are keys to, as you're looking at what it is you're wanting with an Alaska cruise or getting to Alaska in any manner, is what that experience is going to be. So, you get that early season, you're still going to have some cooler weather, but you're going to get some better values typically. And then you get to that July, August, that's peak season. All the kids are still out of school. And so the pricing is going to be high, but your weather is also going to be, you mentioned to me when we were catching up the other day that you haven't had a day of rain. So you get to July, August, and you're much more likely to have drier weather versus that, what would be considered more of a late spring when you're looking at May, June, where they're going to get a little more moisture up there. And then you get into that latter half of August, the kids are going back to school, people are getting back into their fall routine. And so, and the weather's starting to cool back off. So, you've got your different seasons, your spawning season for the salmon and different things that are going on with that seasonality as well. So So, if you really want to maximize what your experience is going to be, that July, August, that's when you get to really right now, I would imagine as you're getting into the glaciers are probably in maximum calving season because they've had 2 or 3 weeks of some more heated weather. And so they're more viable and calving. So, you get a little bit more of that and some of that experience to whereas it starts cooling off and getting to that freezing at night, then you're going to have less of that. So there are lots of significant things to consider regarding when you want to go, budget being one of those, but also that experience. And I think you got to find that balance because you can really miss out on certain things Alaska has to offer if you're not there when the seasonality is going to allow you to experience that.
You bet. And these are all the things that we'll walk through with you. If you're thinking of going to Alaska, we'll sit down, we'll talk about cabins, all those things, and when to go, what you'll see, what you want to see. Number 8 on my list of the top 10 things I've observed on this southbound Inside Passage cruise is watching a glacier calve is the wonder of a lifetime. It's hard to explain it, Paul, when you're cruising up to a glacier and you see this massive 200 or 300 foot wall of ice, and then you hear this thunder, and you go, "What is that?" It's thunder, and it's the calving or the breaking off of a sheer 100 or 200 foot of blue-green ice into the water, and then it just explodes into the water, and you see this giant fountain in response to it, and everybody on the ship just oohs and ahs, and it's a natural, spectacular viewing. It's hard to explain to people, kind of the emotion related to that. And one thing about Alaska is everybody's very sensitive to the environment, very sensitive to maintaining those types of things for our future generations. So that's number 8. Number 9 on my list, Paul, I refuse to allow anyone to purchase anything but an outside cabin with a veranda on an Alaska cruise. Now, I can't believe you don't want to go cheap. If you're not going to do it right, you're not going to go to Alaska. Okay? I'm not going to help you go, because sitting out on your veranda watching the glaciers calve, or the wildlife, or the bears, or the people in a rowboat going beside you, that's just hard to explain. And that's a big part of the experience of Alaska, is being outside. It's, unfortunately, this world has become so inside oriented. This is for outside observing nature.
I think that's the key, is you spend a lot of this experience actually comes from your time on the ship versus, if you go to a cruise in the Caribbean, your experience comes from each island that you're getting off on every day. Whereas Alaska, that experience comes from what you get to see, not just when you're off the ship, but when you're on the ship, because that's where you get to see a lot of this nature. So I 110% agree with you on that don't do Alaska if you're not going to have a veranda. It also makes it so that, if you didn't have that veranda, you're going to be up fighting for that common space to be able to see and have some of those experiences. And that takes away a lot of the intimate and emotional aspects of what that experience entails. So having that private veranda just for you and those traveling with you really gives you the opportunity to have controls over what that experience is going to entail.
Well, my last number 10, the scenic beauty of Alaska, Paul, is actually inspirational. It's hard to explain to people how it causes you to pause and reflect on creation, on our Creator, on all the things that are just important in our lives. And it also gives you, it's tough for me because I'm a go 100 miles an hour guy, and here it kind of like you gotta breathe in, breathe out. You gotta slow the pace. You gotta smell the roses a little bit. So I've noticed that it takes me about 2 or 3 days just to get over that kind of go. But it is spectacular. All the words that you can use, stunning, all the beautiful things that you see and watch, and also just the humble people here. These people they're hardware store people up here. They're just getting by day to day.
And I think that's another thing is as you look at, you kind of talk through the different seasons. A lot of the people that are up there actually this time of year, they're seasonal. So that's why another reason why they've got the shortened season is because people are moving up there just for the season to be able to work that, and then they're heading back to wherever their life is. So so that does make it so that it's a very restricted window for when you're able to get this. But a key to that again comes back to what do you want that experience to entail, and getting the right timing to be able to do that and balance that budget with that experience. So Alaska has always been one of my favorite destinations on the globe, and doing it as you are on a luxury cruise line, very intimate with 500 people on there. I can only imagine it's something that you're going to come back with and not only want to do again, but help others to experience this, and then hopefully we can all go do it again sometime.
Yeah, and Paul, another benefit of all this, and now that we're going to sign off here in 29 minutes, I have to be at my massage at the spa, and it's the only time I do that kind of stuff and get the knots out of my back. But it's one more benefit of doing it, and a lot of people enjoy that. Hey, we're coming to you from Alaska. This is the Weekly Travel Alert. I'm Steve Glenn. I'm the chairman, and we have with us Paul Glenn, the CEO. Paul, you might give us the zip, boom, bing, and we're out of here.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Please like, subscribe, share, and add any comments or feedback below on topics that you feel would be of interest in a future episode. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.